Hello, intermediate CAD students. This is your instructor, John Erickson. I'm creating a video for you today as a demonstration for your Week 2 Assignment 2, Dimensioning a Floor Plan. So I'm going to go through and demonstrate how to create this assignment, how to complete it, and talk to you a little bit about the different items you need to be aware of when it comes to dimensioning floor plans. You're going to want to download the file from Canvas. The file it's a DWG file, so it's a CAD file. You just download it and open it up, and that is this file here. So you'll have a floor plan, and you'll have some instructions that tell you a little bit of the basic information you need to know about what to do for this. Name of the assignment is Week 2, Assignment 2, Dimensioning a Floor Plan. Use the information from chapters 17 through 20 and the dimension.pdf file to fully dimension both interior and exterior of the floor plan that's shown below. So there's another file that I created. It's a PDF file that is an informational file for these chapters. I kind of took the important information and put it into one document. So this is that PDF over here. This is a portion of it, and this is the part that talks about the general guidelines for dimensioning architectural plans. So we'll look at that in a second. Going back to the instructions, for the layers, put the dimensions that you draw on a layer called ANODIMS, and that layer is already created. So if you're on the Home tab, you click on your layers drop down, and that's already there. So set that as your current layer and draw all your dimensions on that layer. The dimension style to use is the Architectural US Annotative, which is already in this drawing. So go to Annotate and then make sure that you are using this Architectural US Annotative. There's nothing else you should need to set in this drawing. It should be all set up and ready to go. What you need to do is draw the exterior dimensions and the interior dimensions, and then save your file and upload that file to Canvas. That's what I will use for grading. Okay, so looking at the general guidelines from the PDF file, general guidelines are you want to show the principal dimensions at least once on each view. We only have one view, which is the floor plan, so you need to at least show the width and the depth of this floor plan, at least in one spot. You want to focus on legibility and readability when you're doing dimensioning. Okay, so what that means is that you shouldn't have text overlapping line work. You shouldn't have things bunched together where it's hard to read it. You have to think about what it's like to read these drawings out on a job site. You know, maybe there's dropping the drawings in the dirt or whatever's happening. You got to think about focusing on legibility and readability so that it's always readable, what you put on there. You want to don't overlap drawing lines with dimension text if possible. We'll talk about that as I'm drawing. Avoid crossing dimension lines. So when you're looking at your dimensions, remember the dimension line is this horizontal part. That's on this dimension right here where it says 24. That horizontal line, that's the dimension line. The vertical part is the extension line that extends from the object on this side and on this side, and then the dimension line is measured from the extension line to the extension line. So you don't want to cross those lines at all. You don't want to cross those dimension lines if you can avoid. It's very rare that there's a situation where you need to ever cross a dimension line with another dimension line or an extension line. Crossing extension lines, that's okay. So for this one, okay, that part, crossing extension lines, that's okay. And you can see that here. Here's an extension line, here's an extension line. Crossing those is okay, but you just want to make sure that you pull your dimensions out far enough so that they're away from the other line, so they're legible again. If your text doesn't fit between the extension lines, move the text out to the side and draw an arc from the text to the spot where the text would be. I don't really have any examples of, oh, right here, there's one example of that. So that 8 wouldn't fit in between this extension line and that extension line, so it was pulled out over here, and then there's a little arc line that's drawn in there to show where it should be. The next one, avoid one continuous string of dimensions across the entire length of a side. So you don't want to have on one string of dimensions where you have a number of items that you're dimensioning, you don't want it to be continuous because or you want to avoid being continuous just because there's an opportunity for there to be a buildup of issues with tolerance. Sometimes as people are building things, they add fractions of inches, and as it goes along, if you have every part of that that side dimensioned, there's not going to be anywhere for those extra pieces to be. So if you're doing, you know, on this one, this is saying 11 foot 10 to here and then 12 foot 2 to here. If they build this and it comes out to be 12 foot 2 and half an inch for whatever reason, just due to, you know, just things aren't precise, and especially in the construction industry, it doesn't come out precisely that, then it makes it, you know, it makes it harder to have this part be correct because already you're not right over here. So in reality, I could leave this part, this 1110 out, and it would be okay, because as long as I'm providing the distance from here to there, then this would be fine. All right, so that's just kind of the general guidelines. For the exterior dimensions, and that's what we're going to start with over here, what you need to know about the exterior dimension is that there are typically 3 rows of exterior dimensions. The first one is the overall building width or length, so this furthest dimension away from the building on this side here is the overall building. That's the 24 feet. The next one, the next string of dimensions closer to the building is the building shape changes. So anywhere that you have a change in the shape of the building, an actual physical change in the exterior wall shape. Then the next row of dimensions will be the openings. So an opening is something like a door opening or a window opening. Now, in this one we have an opening right here, and this one is dimensioned as if it's showing the overall width of the opening from one side to the other, and then it ties into a known position, which is this corner. That's okay, and that's how it's done typically in commercial. This is more of like a residential project, so usually the dimension will be right to the center of the window, and that's how I'm going to do it in the example. You'll see it in a second. In reality, this string of dimensions, this dimension line should continue and be straight and line up with this one. So in my example, it should come across like that, and then this dimension over here should be moved up so that it lines up with that line. I didn't do that in this drawing, so just be aware of that. They should line up. But what's important is that you are tying your dimension into a known location. So this corner is known by this dimension here, so I can put the dimension for this opening and then tie it into that known location. Again, same thing over here. This is an opening, and it's tied into this known location of this edge of the wall here. So 3 dimension rows, typically the overall building shape changes, and then openings. There could be an optional 4th one, and that is the row that represents anything that's missing. So if you had objects like a hose bib, which is where you connect the hose to the to a water supply, or an exterior light, or anything that's on the outside of the building, you could have another row. So there could be 4, but typically it's 3. And so we're going to do that right now. I'm going to make the exterior dimensions. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the correct layer. Yes, Anno Dims, that's correct. Go to Annotate, make sure that I'm using the right dimension style. Architectural US Annotative, that's correct. So I'm going to be using pretty much all linear dimensions. That's the first one here. It's a linear one, and that means it's either going to be horizontal or vertical in my view. So start on the top here. So I'm going to click on, I'm going to have my object snap turned on, which is this button right here. Make sure your object snaps on and that you have, by right clicking on it, I have endpoint, midpoint, intersection, extension. I like perpendicular a lot, so that one's good. Turn that one on. That's about all you need for that. Do not draw with nearest. Whatever you do, that's not a good one to have on. So those are turned on. So now I'm going to click on the dimension buttons, which starts the linear. Hover over the corner until I see the endpoint snap, click, and then come to the other corner, click, pull up and away, and click. That's the overall width. So now I have one of the two overall dimensions done. If I do the other one over here, if I do, let's do it on this side, so I'll do that corner and this corner. That's the overall depth now. So from the bottom down here to the back wall up here, that's the overall depth of the building. So click and then come straight to the right. All right, so that's the overall dimensions of this building. That's the overall width, and that's the overall depth. Okay, so now I have, that's my overall dimensions. Now I'm going to do the shape changes. I don't have any shape changes on this back wall. It's all one flat wall, so I don't have to put anything over here. I'm going to put one, but over here I do. I have the wall comes in and it turns here and then it turns here and turns here. So I need to dimension that. So click on that same corner, come down to this corner, pull out, click there. That's the dimension. Now, according to the guidelines, I could stop there. That's fine. That's going to be determined by your company standards. Some companies want you to do all the dimensions. Some companies don't want you to do them all, because if you include more dimensions than you need, oftentimes that can lead to error. If you don't need to have a dimension, you know, it's best to just leave it out, as long as I've given you enough information. And that would be enough to know where this wall is. It's 12 feet 2 from that back wall. But if I did want to continue it to this next one, I could draw the dimension again, but what I like to do is use the continue command to continue that dimension. So I click on the dimension, all the grips will appear, hover over this grip here, just hover, don't click, and then I'll get a series of options. The one I want to use is continue dimension, which is right there. Click on that, and now it allows me to continue that same dimension. Let's come down to the bottom corner, zoom in to make sure I'm getting the right spot, click, and then hit escape to exit the command. Okay, so that's my shape changes. Now I just have to do the openings. So I'm going to do the openings up here, and like I said, this is residential, so I'm going to dimension to the center of the windows. So from the corner to the center, from this corner on the right side to the center, and it should line up. So the one way you can line it up is just bring your cursor over here until it snaps to that line and then click. And now I know that dimension line and that dimension line are lined up. On this side over here, I have a window and a window. Those are openings. I need to do that one. I need to do this corner to the center, from this bottom corner to the center. I'm going to line those up so they looks nice and organized. And then there's the door here. Now, you know, many times you don't dimension doors, but in this case I'll dimension it just so it's unknown location from this corner, and I need to find the center of that point to that point. And what I can use is a snap that is a special snap, and the way I can access that is hold down shift, right click, select midway between 2 points, which is right here, click that point and that point. It's going to find the midpoint between those two clicks, and there it dimensioned it. And I'll bring that down to here, all the way down. So on this one, I have a shape change, so I want to dimension that on this bottom from there to there. Now those go further than this one. This is opening, so it needs to come out further. And then my openings are click there to the center there, click there to center there, and snap it to that line. So those are the openings. On this side, on the left side, I'm just going to do the openings because there's no building shape changes, and I already show the overall on the right side. So I'm just going to show the openings. Click that one. I need to show this one here. So click on it, hover over the grip, continue dimension, snap to that, and I can come down and click there and then hit enter to escape. So all of my exterior dimensions are complete now. I don't need to, well, I'm going to bring this all the way over to that side there just to finish it off. So I'm going to click here, hover over that, continue, and do the final shape change all the way to there. Okay. Alright, so I'll look at it just to make sure I've included everything, all the doors and windows. I see everything's, that's done, that's done, that's done. Alright. What you want to do now is to organize it so that the spacing from one dimension line to the next is about the same. You can be really, really accurate about it if you want. You could offset lines and determine the spacing, but for me, usually it's just a visual observation, and I'm just going to bring that in so it's a little bit tighter. And I want to make this spacing from that line, that dimension line to that, to kind of be the default for all of them. So click here, click on this grip here and just bring it over a little bit. Click on this one, click on that grip, snap it. Click on this one, bring it in. So now like that space, and that space, you kind of want it to be visually similar. Click on this, bring it in. Right about there. Alright, so that's about good. Alright, so that's all of the exterior dimensions. Now what I have left to do is the interior dimensions. So what's going to be different about this is that we're going to measure from the inside of the walls, and the way to approach this, because this is a very, very simple plan, but oftentimes plans are very complicated, and the way to approach it is to just draw one horizontal string from one side of the building all the way to the other side, do one vertical string, and then go back and look and see what has been left out, and then go back in and add those in at wherever you can, wherever it makes sense. Now the goal again is legibility and readability, so you don't want to cover things up. You want to try to minimize covering objects up. Alright, so I'm just going to start the dimension command, click on the inside of the wall here, and then I will click, I'm going across, and I'm not going to dimension the thickness of the wall, because that will be given somewhere in the drawing as a note or as a general description somewhere. So I don't need to do that here. I'm just going to go from this interior wall to the next interior wall, into the interior wall, but on the same exact side. So I'm on the right side here. I'm going to be on the right side there. Click there, come down, and I'm going to leave it about right there. And then I'm going to click on it, continue, and just go to the opening to this wall right there, opening, Now I could draw in this last one, or I could leave it out. Either way, it depends. It's a kind of a personal preference. I think for somebody out in the field that's building it, it'd be a lot nicer to see it right here, because you wouldn't really want to have to measure from this way or add all these numbers up to figure out what it should be, what that distance of that wall should be. So it's kind of nice if you just add it in there. All right, so you want to go back and look at your dimension string to make sure that you are not covering up line work. Like right here, this is getting a little tight to this line, but it's probably okay. If you do want to move it, click on your dimension, hover over the grip till you see this dialog pop up, and then you're going to get a number of options. The one that I usually use is move text only. You could use stretch also. And usually you have to turn the snap off, which is F3 is the shortcut. So I turn my snap off temporarily, put it where I want, and then hit F3 to turn snap back on. Alright, so this wall is dimensioned, this opening's dimensioned, that wall's dimensioned, this opening's dimensioned. All of that stuff is good. I'm going to bring this grip down so it shows that it's snapping to that point. You need that little gap right there. That gap will show you where it's snapping. What I'm missing is, and I'm not looking at the cabinets or the fixtures, I'm just looking at the walls really. What I'm missing is these walls right here. So you don't really want to have dimensions going that are extension lines that are going either are up here and then down here. That's kind of confusing. So you could do all of them down, but if I did all of them down, I would be missing a lot of this stuff up here. So I think this is a good choice to do it right there and have all of them going there. I just need to add some dimensions right here to just show what this is. So I already know what this wall is going to be set by dimensions on the exterior, so I can just dimension from this wall to there. So that locates that. So now you know how far this wall is from there, and I just need to know how deep it is. So I think it's safe to assume that this line and that line line up. I think somebody looking at the plan would know that those two walls line, that two lines line up. So that means I don't have to dimension all the way down here to this wall or up to this wall. In this case, this text came over here with a little leader. I don't really like that, so I'm going to click on it, click on the dimension, hover over the grip, click move text only, and then move it up to about here, and now I'm going to draw an arc. So click on the arc. It's a 3-point arc, so you do the first point, the middle point, and then the third point. So start the command by clicking on it, first point, middle point, end point. So it's saying, all right, this number should be right here is what it's telling somebody. All right, so that's the horizontal dimensions. Now I need the vertical dimensions. So I'm going to start the dimension command, click on annotate dimension, interior inside of the wall to that corner. And then I need to know, I mean, you kind of know where this wall is. Really all you need to know is that. That's all you really need. It's very simple. You could go all the way across if you want just to complete it, but again, it's not required, but I'll do it just to make it a little more interesting looking. So, and that would completes it. That's all you need to add to fully dimension this. And dimensioning is a skill that you get better with time. You just got to work on it. This is a very simple plan. So plans can get really, really complicated. Again, the best way to do it is to follow the guidelines. Do the 3 rows on the outside for the exterior dimension, and then on the inside do a horizontal string, figure out what's missing, do a vertical string, figure out what's missing. Sometimes in big complicated plans you have to do multiple vertical strings and multiple horizontal strings, and the plans are really complicated, so you spend a lot of time moving things around to keep it legible and readable. This one's a pretty simple one, so hopefully that helps you. If you have any questions, please let me know.